The Eagles Must Land, May 20th, 2022. We are in serious trouble. America is in very serious trouble. Americans are suffering needlessly from self-inflicted wounds made by this administration and the puppets controlling it. Americans must wake up and realize that this is on purpose. The goal is just as Cloward and Piven explained back in the 1970s. Overload the system so it collapses in on itself. Then rebuild it the way that they would have it, as a socialist country with a large central government. Luckily, the Constitution was written to protect us from tyranny. For 235 years, it has served us well, allowing Americans to pursue happiness and as a shield against our enemies. It is the oldest Constitution in the world, and make no mistake, it is divinely inspired and incredibly effective. The tools the founders installed into the Constitution and the Bill of Rights remain incredibly effective tools in the battle against tyranny. There has been an organized effort to bring America down by brewing since the late 1960s, and some would argue it began back in the early 1900s. When it started is irrelevant. The progressives realized that they couldn't win in their efforts to turn America into a socialist country without changing the culture from within. So they began to sink their tentacles into government, education, and information. He who controls information controls the world. However, the tools and tactics have changed. Some were foreseen by the architects and some unseen, cloaked from their mind's eye by the progression of time and the new developments that would come with it. We must wake up. The claim that America has gone this far to the left is a mirage. The country at large remains center-right, but the majority runs the House, because they are the loudest, screaming like spoiled children. The squeaky wheel gets the oil after all, and they are nothing if not squeaky. The left portrays an image more like Oz in The Wizard of Oz, a small man with a big microphone. Who will stand with us? The Eagles must land. Violence is up, so are the prices for everything. The baby formula shortage is already causing fighting between the people. And the upcoming and planned food shortages are going to create more violence and splintering of the American society. America is in a deep and swift decline. The policies of this administration are taking America apart, brick by brick. Only now the pace is much faster. I believe the left knows its days are numbered, and they are working feverishly to get as much done as possible and to cover as many tracks as possible. We need the Eagles to land. Sometimes it feels like we are already doomed. There was a glimmer of hope a few months back with the People's Convoy, but that turned out to be more of a gypsy carnival rather than an effective movement. They had quite a bit of support in the beginning. I started to see the writing on the wall on their third day in Hagerstown. Now they are splintered and disbanding. They still live stream the same old tired speeches, but crowds are small. Support is all but gone, and for good reason. Afghanistan. 13 American servicemen and women killed. He stood and looked at his watch when their bodies were being received and their families stood close by. Why? Southern border. Our southern border is completely out of control. Every month it seems new records are broken. Border crisis. New record last month of 235,000 illegal immigrants, and it is now going to go up when they let the Title 42 expire. That is devastating to America. Last year set a 30-year record. This year will be much worse. Not to mention the fentanyl crisis that is tied directly to the border. We are approaching 2 million illegal aliens crossing into America illegally. The number is now 3.9 million. And that does not count the new number one killer of adults, 18 to 45, is the fentanyl that's coming across our southern border. It almost all originates from China and shipped to Mexico to make its way across our borders. Why? Transitory inflation. Biden claimed that inflation would be transitory. That was a lie, and he knew it when he said it. Today, the average family pays $6,000 more a year because of Biden's inflation. Why? Oil fuel crisis. The average family now pays $2,000 more for gas a year. We have record high gas prices in all 50 states. Also, keep in mind that while Biden canceled the Keystone Pipeline in the U.S. on his first day, he grifted Putin the Nord Stream 2 pipeline to Europe. Why? We could be receiving 900,000 barrels a day through that pipeline from Canada. Economics. The White House recently said the stock market is, quote, not something we keep an eye on every day, unquote. The stock market is tied directly to people's 401k retirement funds. How much have you lost? You are losing money every day. I'm not going to get into the 40 billion to Ukraine to disappear into the ether. Some will undoubtedly find its way back to Pelosi or some other corrupt Congress members. Rand Paul wanted to appoint an official to keep track of where that money goes. However, the Democrats blocked it. Why? COVID tests. They ran out of COVID tests and therapeutics like monoclonal antibodies during the Christmas season, a time when anyone could have predicted a spike in cases. Why? Supply chain crisis. Joe, the big guy, Biden, claimed we would all be out of the supply chain crisis quickly. This was an outright lie as well. Why were we having that crisis in the first place? War in Europe. Now there is a war in Europe because of our weakness. Parents are domestic terrorists. If you got loud at a school board meeting, you could be put on the list they said didn't exist. They lied under oath, Merrick Garland, and investigated by the FBI. Biden said no one making under $400,000 a year will see their taxes go up. You'll actually see your standard of living go up and costs go down. That was a lie. Inflation is transitory. Lie. The supply chain crisis will be fixed in a 90-day sprint. Lie. I promise to be the most pro-union president. Lie. I will shut down the virus. Lie. I will not make vaccines mandatory. Lie. Mask mandates will be lifted after 100 days. Lie. I will visit the border at some point. Lie. I'll get the opioid crisis under control. Lie. I will be a president for all Americans, not just a Democratic president. I will unify the country. Lie. I will defeat the lies. Lie. I will always tell the truth. Lie. The Afghanistan withdrawal will be conducted orderly and safely. Lie. On numerous occasions, he has referred to Kamala as the president. He advocated for Putin's removal from power and then had to walk that back. The big guy claims he was arrested during the civil rights movement, yet he partnered with a Klansman to stop the integration of schools. Later claimed, quote, I helped desegregate restaurants and schools, unquote. I could continue, but you get the idea. Not only is the man not fit to be the appointed president, but he is also a weak puppet being controlled by someone else, an organization or government most likely. He has been compromised. He is incompetent, and he is a criminal. I suppose that could be said for most of government. So when is it time to stand? Who will do the standing? America should have stood a long time ago. Well, was it not for the left's control of information, they would have. We are faced with a new battle of waking up the patriots and motivating them to overcome this now more powerful enemy. That is not to say it is too late now. It is not. However, it gets harder with each passing day. With the failure and dismantling of the People's Convoy, conservatives are even more divided than before. Many have lost hope. Some still cling to the movement even as it quickly fades away in the rearview mirror. I wrote a few months ago how this would be the case, that they would split up into smaller state groups. Then people like Trucker G would travel the country making appearances along with some other from the money-making convoy. Just look at some of my recent blog entries. This was predictable. So with the convoy behind us, where do we go from here? Simple. We go back to California, we go back to the Constitution. Big difference there. We have the greatest and oldest Constitution in the world. It is being violated in so many ways it is hard to keep count. We are standing by while they ruin the shining city on a hill. That must not be allowed to happen. We must educate the people on how far past its limits the federal government has encroached. How many states, policy, or issues have they pushed their way into controlling or manipulating? The founders did not want one powerful central government. We now have the very government they warned us about. The federal government has pushed its way into places it does not belong. They bully the states by holding back funds until the states bend. It is outrageous. They must be pushed back on. We are the navigators of this country, not these out-of-control, power-tripping, corrupt politicians. It's time for regular people to run for office. It's time to put the boot heel of the American citizen on the neck of the federal government. Quote, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, invites a new design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Unquote. Thomas Jefferson wrote so eloquently in the Declaration of Independence, this is what needs to be done. The drums of war have been heard far in the distance for years. Now they are getting louder as the reality of what is happening to America sinks into the common man and woman. This affects us all. The pieces are being put into place to bring us so far that we won't be able to recover. If that happens, the goal must change from correcting America's path to forming a new one that will follow the original Constitution. If Americans go to the polls and cast our votes, we can take our government away from the left for a long time. Once the left has been neutered, we move on to getting rhinos and replacing them with getting rhinos out and replacing them with true constitutional conservatives through the primary process. Then we move into the general elections with solid constitutional conservatives candidates. Power belongs to the states, not the big central government that was never meant to exist in such a manner as it does today, or even 100 years ago for that matter. The founders left us a map to success, the Constitution, the Federalist Papers, and so much more. We as Americans need to educate ourselves on those things, because with that knowledge we can stop this tyranny and treason in our current system. If the election of 2024 or even in 2022 looks anything like the monstrosity of corruption that the 2020 election brought us, there will be consequences. Much like the trucker said, we need to remind them that they work for us. Too bad they didn't have the guts to make that happen. Well, there are people out there, organizations and citizens that will step up when the call goes out. This cannot be allowed to stand. They are purposefully destroying America. They are committing treason, the only crime mentioned in the Constitution, because they took it so seriously, as well it should be. Bring them up on trial and carry out the designated punishment right on Pennsylvania Avenue in public, in the light, because they worked in the dark against us for so long. Let the traitors meet their end there, and let them remain there for months as a reminder of what happens when you commit treason against the United States of America. The greatest, most powerful, most generous, most prosperous country in the world history. Those who would corrupt it from the inside must be punished for all to see. Now they want to gift away our sovereignty to other nations and world organizations. This is unacceptable and must be stopped. You see, they cannot defeat the Constitution in a head-to-head battle, so they find a workaround that the framers might not have been able to foresee, such as the United Nations Arms Trade Treaty. President Trump pulled us out of that agreement, saying this at a National Rifle Association meeting. Quote, under my administration, we will never surrender American sovereignty to anyone. We will never allow foreign bureaucrats to trample on your Second Amendment freedom. I'm officially announcing today that the United States will be revoking the effect of America's signature from this badly misguided treaty. Unquote. However, now Biden's handlers want to enter back into it. This would allow the UN to keep a worldwide arms database only visible to those who also sign on. This also allows every country to see all the other countries' databases. Essentially, China would know what you keep in your nightstand if they already don't through Google and Apple. China is all about signing on because they already banned their citizens from possessing firearms. Apparently, they also want to give away more American sovereignty to the World Health Organization. So it would then be up to them if you have a mask mandate or a vaccine mandate. Maybe they come get you to make you, quote, quarantine, or as I imagine it would be more of a re-education camp. How about your children? Will they be able to just take them? What does this all mean? And again, why? There are so many moving parts to these intricate plans the leftists are pushing through, it is almost impossible to see them all. I feel I am able to piece these all together to show the connections between all of it and the end game of world government. So many pieces, moving parts, once they work them all through into the circle of the mainstream, it will be too late. They will have taken our power, and instead of abolishing the Constitution, they will use other nations and organizations as tools to work around the Constitution. Sometimes I even find myself thinking, America is doomed. There are too many stupid people out there now. The leftists have won. They took control of education and information. We lose. America is finished. There is no hope. It is not hard to find yourself there, nervous, stressed, or upset, so you retreat into your own life, into your own house, ignoring the reality and choosing instead to live in the blissful ignorance of the mental matrix the left has built for you. There are Americans that will answer the call, eagles that will give their lives if needed to protect this America and the Constitution. We must get organized and be able to connect without prying eyes. I have ideas to build a network of patriots across the country to help educate and mobilize. With your help, we can make this happen. Please consider supporting our mission by visiting our shop or making a secure donation. If you have any interest in more information, please reach out to me at the address below. Thank you for listening. See us on megamericans.com.